Okay, Ashley, who do you have?
Yeah, so I am going to think about the defensive side of the ball here. We're going to switch gears. And this is a guy I think we've talked about a lot in this context, but I am going to go with JOK. I think his biggest problem has been staying healthy. I think when he is healthy, he's kind of flashed this athleticism. I'm really curious to see what Jim Schwartz does with him, and considering, we've talked a lot about in Jim Schwartz defenses how a lot more responsibility is put on the defensive line typically. So that should make life a little easier for the linebackers and allow them to get more creative, which I think is something JOK does well. But I think when we've talked about him in the past, it's staying healthy, number one. Does he have enough weight on him to stay healthy and to effectively play the position, I think is another thing that we've gotten after with, the coaches. I know I asked Joe Woods about it towards the end of the season and things like that. So I think knowing how versatile he is and how athletic he is, I still have really high hopes for him, but we didn't see him take that big second year jump because he was injured so often this year and had a season ending foot injury as well. So I really think that if he steps up, it could go a long way in the second level of that defense to kind of help them.
Yeah, Mary Kay, one of the things when we talked to Jim Schwartz when he first got introduced that I think is important is, this wasn't John Dorsey who had been bunkered down and, watching tape like he was a GM, even though he wasn't before he took the Browns job. Jim is kind of still learning about these guys, and he hadn't really dug into this team. I'm sure he did research before he took the job, but he hadn't really dug in to the level where he could really give us good answers about players if he even wanted to. So I'm really interested to hear kind of what Jim Schwartz actually thinks about how JOK fits, what he wants him to look like, how he wants to use him, because he's going to be a key piece to this defense. And Ashley's right. He belongs on this list of guys that have to step up next season.
Yeah, and I think he will. I mean, he was coming off of the horrible tragedy that we've talked about of losing his brother last offseason. And I think that impacted him, in many ways, physically, emotionally, of course, and otherwise, just like it would for anybody else. So I think that, with that another year behind him, he should be starting off this season in more of a position of strength, both literally and figuratively. So that is something to sort of keep an eye on a little bit, but certainly he does need to step it up. I mean, he's basically considered a first rounder for the Browns. I mean, they felt that he was a first round talent. Now, traditionally, it seems like Jim Schwartz hasn't valued the linebackers as much as he has his defensive linemen, his defensive tackles, his ends. And he doesn't really blitz that much, but JOK is a special talent. And so I think he'll see that in him. I think he will see his versatility, his shiftiness, his ranginess, his ability to play well against the mobile quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, the game has changed since Jim Schwartz last coordinated a defense. Even in the last 2 years, there's been more of a proliferation of dual threat mobile quarterbacks and, RPOs and different things that have been going on over the last couple of years. So, I think it's useful to have a very, very versatile linebacker like that can drop into coverage, that can blitz, that can do all the kinds of things that JOK can do. And remember, everybody regressed on this defense last year for whatever reason. Everybody except for Myles Garrett did. So now it's going to be incumbent upon Jim Schwartz to bring everybody up off the mat and try to get the best out of all of them.
Ashley, what does a bounce back season look like to you for JOK? Maybe not bounce back, but what does a stepped up season look like for you to JOK?
I mean, number one, I think it's just more consistency. And it took him a while to get going this year where you felt like he was making an impact. And really for me, I think the first time we saw those flashes were that October game against the Ravens. So For me, I just think it's more about him being out there and available to kind of do those versatile things that Mary Kay was talking about, and especially to help your defense against these mobile quarterbacks. Because, in theory, he's a guy that can cover a receiver if he has to. He can go after a running back if he has to. He can chase down a mobile quarterback if he has to. He could blitz if he has to. He can do all these things. So I think it's just a matter for me of him being available to do them.
Mary Kay, is there a specific